Acts 21:33-40. The commander came up and arrested him and ordered him to be bound with 2 chains. Then he asked who he was and what he had done. Some in the crowd shouted one thing and some another, and since the commander could not get at the truth because of the uproar, he ordered that Paul be taken into the barracks. When Paul reached the steps, the violence of the mob was so great he had to be carried by the soldiers. The crowd that followed kept shouting, "Get rid of him!" As the soldiers were about to take Paul into the barracks, he asked the commander, "May I say something to you?" "Do you speak Greek?" he replied. "Aren't you the Egyptian who started a revolt and led 4,000 terrorists out into the wilderness some time ago?" Paul answered, "I am a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no ordinary city. Please let me speak to the people." After receiving the commander's permission, Paul stood on the steps and motioned to the crowd. When they were all silent, he said to them in Aramaic, or possibly Hebrew. Usually an arrest is all bad news, but in this case the Roman soldiers saved Paul from certain death. In verse 35, we see clearly that the mob is getting so violent that he had to be carried out. We learn later in Acts 23:26 that the Roman commander's name was Claudius Lysias, and this commander is going to play a major role in these next 2 chapters. As tribune, he was in charge of 1,000 soldiers, about 75% infantry and 25% cavalry. His primary task was peacekeeping, and they had about a 100-foot tower called Antonia, and it was so tall that it hung over the temple to be able to spy on all the activity there. It wouldn't have taken them long to see the riot and report it to Lysias, and the text said that he took more than 1 centurion, which means that if each centurion is 100 soldiers, then at least 200 Roman guards are filling the Gentile Court of the temple to shut the mob down. There is an ironic pattern of Paul being rescued by Romans. We see it here in chapter 21, verse 33. We also see that he's saved from being torn to shreds by the Sanhedrin in 23:10, again by Lysias in 23:27, and from the ambush attempt of the 40 Jewish zealots in 23:30. Felix saves him in 24:22. Festus probably unwittingly rescues him from another ambush in 25:1-5, and you could even argue that the emperor himself saved Paul in 25:10. We're going to get to the details of all this in our next few lessons, but the point here is that sometimes God uses the most unlikely sources to save us. The Romans killed Christ. Paul was a thorn in the side of the empire, with his gritty determination to spread the good news by any means necessary. The only explanation for why the state would save an enemy of the state is God. It could be a mean boss, a frenemy, our least favorite uncle, an ex, or the annoying neighbor, but it's an amazing thing to open our eyes to see God's plan in retrospect. Let's be grateful for our unlikely rescuers and be on the lookout for how God can work in any situation at any time.